So HAF, or Holiday Activities and Food Programme, is a Department of Education-led programme. It's actually a programme that's funded by the DFE of over £220 million per year. And it is targeted at the 152 upper-tier local authorities across England. The programme is aimed primarily for providing support for children and young people who are in receipt of free school meals across the holiday period. And it's a programme that encompasses both physical activity, cultural activities, so visiting the museums and engaging in different cultural activities such as arts and crafts, and cooking alongside that. And in addition, all of the children and young people receive a free meal, a nutritious meal during the day.
From Coordinate Sports, it's The Drive Phase, a show about sports founders, leaders and experts and the stories behind their business journeys. Our guests on this episode are Greta Defeyter of the University of Northumbria and Andy Forsey, Chair of the HAF Alliance. The HAF programme has made a huge impact on disadvantaged young people across the country. However, it can still be more effective, especially by engaging more young people. Greta has led the HAF Plus engagement with young people to explore how HAF can become more attractive, reduce barriers and deliver more for our young people. During the show, we hear about the future of HAF and the National Sprint event in London, which was a culmination of a national roadshow of events for young people who are showcasing their ideas of how HAF could be in the future. Enjoy the show. Okay, I'm really excited to welcome Greta Defeyter, Director of the Healthy Living Lab at Northumbria University, and Andrew Forsey, National Director of Feeding Britain and also Chair of the HAF Alliance, to the show today. We've got a bit of a different episode, bonus episode if you like. We're going to be taking a deep dive into the HAF Sprint initiative that's currently running and actually having its national event this week. So great to have two of the leaders on the show today. I think it's probably best to, I guess, kick off a bit of background into HAF. I mean, everyone listening probably knows exactly what the program is, but it'd be great if you could kind of give us a, I guess, brief history of HAF to date from inception to now.
Sure. Thanks, James, for that lovely introduction. Okay, so I think the best thing to do is actually just give you an overview of what HAF it currently is and what it aims to achieve. And then that will lead us nicely in later in the conversation to talking about the HAF design sprints and why they're important. So HAF, or Holiday Activities and Food Programme, is a Department of Education-led programme. It's actually a programme that's funded by the DFE of over £220 million per year. And it is targeted at the 152 upper-tier local authorities across England. The programme is aimed primarily for providing support for children and young people who are in receipt of free school meals across the holiday period. And it's a programme that encompasses both physical activity, cultural activities, so visiting the museums and engaging in different cultural activities such as arts and crafts, and cooking alongside that. And in addition, all of the children and young people receive a free meal, a nutritious meal during the day. The programme started off piloting many years ago now, and actually it was Frank Field that introduced a private members bill, which was the early days of HAF that Andrew will be aware of, that we started to get HAF running. But lots of local authorities and community groups were already running their own holiday programmes. So this programme is both being top down from the government, but also bottom up from community organisations. The programme, if I believe Andrew will correct me if I'm wrong, it finishes in 2024. It's funded fully till 2024. And we're hoping that the success of the programme, which has proved to be very successful over multiple evaluations over the last few years, will be continued to be invested in by the government.
And I guess probably a good time for Andrew, for you to tell us a little bit about Feeding Britain. I know so many, this program, HAF, is just really like an embodiment of a partnership program, right? So many providers, so many different organizations all working together to kind of to make sure the program's successful and rolled out to all the young people and children who are eligible and who need the provision. Feeding Britain being one of the key partners, and also your work with obviously pulling everyone together via the HAF Alliance. It'd be great for you to give us a bit of a deep dive into that.
Certainly, James, thank you. Feeding Britain remains, to the best of my knowledge, the only charity ever to have been created by an all-party group of MPs and peers from the House of Commons and the House of Lords in Westminster. And the charity was created at the end of a year-long parliamentary inquiry that those MPs and peers from all different parties led into the drivers of hunger and food insecurity across the UK. And among the bits of data that most alarmed that all-party group of parliamentarians was from food banks all over the country, showing this Mount Everest-like peak in demand for their emergency food parcels during school holidays from families with children. And so the first 3 years of Feeding Britain's existence, from 2015 through to 18, was spent helping to lead both the parliamentary and the public campaigns for a national government-backed scheme that would ensure that every child throughout England had access to nutritious meals, enriching activities throughout the whole calendar year, not just the academic year. And as Greta mentioned, the piece of legislation that Feeding Britain's trustees presented to Parliament helped secure from the government an initial 3-year pilot period, where in a number of regions they would try out this approach of meals and activities backed by taxpayers' money in partnership with local community groups. And so once 2018 was in the rearview mirror and a number of regional and some national providers began to get under their belts some pretty good experience and expertise on how this approach could be scaled up nationally, that we thought, well, let's convene a broader alliance under Feeding Britain's chairmanship that could safeguard a commitment to the broader national rollout by the government. And as Greta said, that campaign was successful. And so we're now looking ahead to the next general election in 2024 or thereabouts to make sure that in each of the party manifestos, the HAF Alliance can secure those commitments to an even longer term HAF programme. Because as I'm sure we're going to come on to in a moment, we've now got a really good programme that is making a significant difference to lots of people's lives.
One thing from my observation, I guess, from I suppose the macro level, is looking at society and the people who are most affected and benefit from the programme. That group of people is, I'm assuming, and you guys probably have the stats, assuming that's only growing in terms of an issue and a challenge across the country.
So I think everybody's aware of the cost of living crisis post-COVID. So I think we have a double whammy, so to speak. So households that live in poverty first were hardest hit by COVID. Coming out of COVID, they're also the households that are hardest hit by the cost of living crisis. And I think that's something to bear in mind, because we all celebrate that, COVID is still around, but we're not in the lockdown and the awful state that we're in. Although, fair dues to our NHS colleagues who really supported us in helping to recover from COVID. But the long-term effects of COVID are really unknown at this stage. We know, for example, that there's been a significant rise in poor mental health amongst young people. We know that the food system is struggling in meeting demand at food banks for the first time ever. I'm hearing daily stories of food banks actually running out of food, whilst donations have gone down because every household is being hit by the cost of living crisis. So we're in a situation where demand is peaking and will probably continue to grow over the winter months, because we've been relatively lucky with mild weather so far. But up in the northeast, there's a sign that that's changing. We had our first sprinkling of snow last night, so heating is firmly on today. So I think it's important in two ways. I think that it's important in terms of the here and now to ensure that this programme moves from being a good programme to being an outstanding programme to support young people and their households during this difficult time. But I think it's also an important programme in terms of ensuring that we invest in that time that was lost by young people and children during COVID as almost a recovery programme for human capital. And many economists have shown that the best predictor of driving an economy's growth is actually what they call human capital. So investing in young people for education, for skills, investing in young people in terms of their health and well-being. So I'm hoping that this programme will be seen in that light from now on.
Definitely. It'd be really interesting to talk around, I don't know how much research is into the programme and looking at all the metrics, the successes and areas for improvement, etc. So in terms of since its launch, like official launch, the 2020, if I got it right, 2021, the official one, I guess what have been the major challenges there? I know, I guess the logistical one of just finding enough to be able to meet the demand and meet the eligibility demand. But is there anything that's really kind of stands out as key challenges of engaging and scaling the program?
Okay, Andrew, do you want to go on that one?
When it comes to social policy, James, the HAF programme is the closest thing I've seen to a silver bullet, because it has already shown itself capable of alleviating family poverty in the here and now and safeguarding the quality of life for children from households on lower incomes. Alongside that, it's showing a lot of potential when it comes to improving that same group of children's life chances and their ability to get on in their adult life. There's a whole range of positive outcomes emerging when it comes to childcare opportunities, particularly for working parents, the health and well-being of children. No matter what one's area of interest, the Holiday Activities and Food Programme has already shown itself capable and also possessing the potential to go even further on each of those areas. But as Greta said, the broad theme to emerge from the first 2 years national rollout now is that we've got ourselves a really good programme that, with a bit of fine-tuning and a bit of tweaking in the right areas, could become even better, even stronger, and even more effective for years to come. So it's ensuring that every child and family eligible for the programme is aware of its existence and how they can make the most of it and access it in their area. It's ensuring that it's as easy as possible to access through the booking system. It's ensuring that every setting that's involved in the delivery of the programme is actually able to offer the community what the community needs and wants, and what its circumstances dictate is necessary. So as I say, we've got a very strong foundation here, and thanks to the events that Greta and her team have been leading, I think we've got the tools and the equipment to build on those foundations.
Yes, it's interesting. I know you touched on the kind of the childcare and the support for the wider family group as such. I guess anecdotally, and understanding the program, definitely from kind of a primary school age, it's simple to deliver kind of those well-known local venues, schools, youth centres or community centres, etc., used as locations. Really successful and working really well. I know the work of the design sprint. I'm really interested in hearing how the kind of design sprints came about and kind of those focuses, because you're focusing on the older children, older young people as such, where they might not want their mum and dad to book them onto a holiday camp, and might not feel like it's where they want to be, or they maybe don't have agency in that decision. I guess this one for you, Greta. Where did the design sprints kind of concept come from, and was it just purely that you wanted to hear what the young people wanted and wanted to be demand, like kind of let them lead the program and design it?
Andrew's painted a really good overview of the program. The program, in terms of a national program of this scale, we have to remind ourselves it's still in its relative infancy in terms of such a large program. So there's two areas as a researcher that cause of concern for me. The first area is to ensure that we have a similar level of standards and qualities across every local authority in England participating in the program. And at the moment, I think it's fair to say that the service provision is a little bit variable. So we've had some local authorities that have been early adopters of the programme during the pilot, that, if you like, have got a little bit of a head start on some of the other local authorities that came in once the full programme was launched. So the important thing to look at for the next couple of years is making sure that we level up, if you like, the programme provision. So there's social equity and equality wherever you live. It's not a postcode lottery in terms of the service. But generally, I think I'd agree with Andrew that most local authorities are doing a really grand job. The second area that I really looked at in terms of both evaluation from the DFE and also our work and our research is that 80% of the programme is actually full up with primary school children. That's only 20% of secondary children that attend. And the programme is aimed at 5 to 16-year-olds. So you can see right there in the terms of a distribution of attendance, most of the young people that are attending are actually at primary school.
Sorry, Greta, just on that point, do you have, so like you said, it's 80-20 with, I guess, primary, secondary. Is it just an even distribution in terms of eligibility for the programme? Does that make sense? Or is it skewed to younger children just because of, I don't know, economic factors, socioeconomic factors?
It's slightly skewed towards younger children, but proportionally secondary school young people are very low in terms of their attendance as an absolute figure of their top population. So in other words, there's not many secondary school age young people attending the program, even though they're entitled to attend. So when I looked at this, I decided, it was about a year and a half ago now, to really explore why it was, because at the time the Department of Education was encouraging local authorities to market the program more towards the secondary school age group. And whilst that's one option, I think the more fundamental kind of research question I had was the program in its current state fit for purpose for secondary school aged young people? What was it about the program that those that attended liked, that they liked about it? And what was it for those that didn't attend that they didn't like about it? And so I went around the country and I actually interviewed over 500 young people. And that was all well and good. And I could have just gone ahead and written a research paper on that. But at the same time, I've been working with colleagues in design at Northumbria University to look at how we can bring psychology, developmental psychology in particular, and how we can bring design and psychology together to look at a new method of engaging young people, not just listening to their voice, but actively engaging them in policy and designing programs for them that are aimed at them in their local area. And then the idea of having this national kind of design sprint sprung out from the work that I was doing in the local areas. So I contacted a number of organisations who are leaders in this area and said, look, why don't we all get together and we can run the sprints locally, so it could be a place-based agenda, as Andrew said earlier, looking at what the programme in your local area, how that could work for secondary school age young people, because obviously there's differences between Northumberland and inner city Birmingham, but then how we could bring young people together to share their experiences of their design and looking at the different designs across England, and then come up with a national framework that has been co-designed with adults but led by young people.
Got it. And then in terms of, I guess, next steps from the young people who've been working on these for, like you said, the last probably, I guess, 12 months, maybe 12 months. I guess from going from there to then trying to implement that, whether it's a policy or best practice, etc. I suppose that's where, I guess, the power of the group with HAF Alliance probably comes in, right, to get this to the ground level, if you like, and delivered.
Yes, but we've invited lots of government representatives to our national design sprint, Thursday the 24th of November at Nesta in London. And what we're hoping is that they will take some of those ideas and firstly implement perhaps as an example of good practice for local authorities to explore. But what we'd really like is to pilot this in 2 or 3 areas across the country, so we can look at how it actually implements into the local authority. Do the programs work? Do they drive the outcomes that the young people believe that they will drive? So before making it a national policy, it's a little bit of a test and learn, almost like we did with HAF originally for primary when we ran the design sprint, and it involved Andrew and Feeding and Greta. I think it was in 2019 or 2020. Andrew will correct me, he's far better at dates than I am. But it's the same type of policy. So when we're looking at increasing uptake of HAF, it's also a recognition that HAF Plus, as young people are calling it at the moment, is quite different coming out of these local sprints to what it is from the national framework. So let me just give a quick example, and then I'll be quiet and let Andrew have an opportunity. So, for example, young people in every area of England that we've tested and ran a local sprint in have been concerned about things like employment opportunities. So can they have job placements as part of HAF? Can they get work experience as part of HAF? And that currently isn't in the HAF framework as it currently exists. They're also interested in, rather than having a fixed place where you go to spend all of your time, they're interested in having like HAF in a digital form. So companies and organisations can load on the activities with local authorities for various cultural, physical and different experiences. And young people could then dip in and out of those experiences throughout the day, the week, and of course the holiday period. So whilst it's similar, it actually delivers more outcomes for young people than the current programme, but it needs a kind of like innovative approach to say, let's see what works for young people. And the best people that know that are the young people themselves. And that's what we're hoping to achieve at the national sprint, of looking at HAF almost through the eyes of a young person and what they need for them.
Definitely. Andrew, I was going to mention, I know you talked earlier on around kind of social policy and HAF being a big driver for that. And it's just those examples there that Greta pointed to in terms of kind of education and employability and stuff like that. It's almost multiplying the impact of the initial HAF program, which was addressing that need. What's your thoughts on that? And I guess bringing all those organisations together, I guess from a HAF Alliance standpoint.
Well, if the government was looking for a poster child for levelling up, they wouldn't have to look any further than the HAF programme. For reasons we discussed earlier, with childcare and earnings opportunities, with health and well-being, with equalising opportunities to fun and enriching activities, it is all there within HAF. And it's now 2.5 years, as Greta mentioned, since members of what would become the HAF Alliance convened an event with the Department for Education to build on our knowledge and expertise from those regional pilots and help the Department for Education come up with a delivery framework if we were to scale this up safely and successfully to the whole of England. And that mission has by and large been accomplished over the 2.5 years since then. But as Greta has put much more eloquently than I ever could, we've now reached a stage in the life of HAF where we need the views and the voices and the perspectives of young people to tell us what next for this good programme so we can make it even better. And I think what the Department for Education will be receiving at the end of this series of events is a whole range of ideas for how we could enshrine basic minimum standards across the whole of England, but also demonstrate the art of the possible in how we can make this the best programme for young people that could be achieved. As Greta mentioned, the word or the theme that could run through all of these ideas is flexibility. So could we look at greater flexibility over the opening hours of HAF for over 11s? Could we look at late afternoon or early evening services with dinner rather than early mornings with breakfasts? Can we look at having more mentoring or leadership or roles that come with responsibility within the HAF offer for over 11s? Could we actually lay on activities that the young people want to access and take part in? Can we look again at how the HAF programme is branded for over 11s? Can we look at potentially drop-in like services rather than strict criteria around booking systems? And can we also have a bit more flexibility and common sense if a young person who qualifies for free school meals wants to bring 2 or 3 of their mates who don't qualify? Well, if we turn away the other 2 or 3, that might inadvertently exclude our young person who does qualify. So I think there's room for creativity and flexibility and what I would call common sense here in making this good programme work even better for young people over the age of 11.
Yeah, I guess that's the challenge. I know, again, anecdotally, that can be a challenge with, every local authority or every different type of region. Like you said, whether it's rural or in a city, they all have kind of slightly different needs, and the young people have slightly different needs and want to access things differently. And I suppose it's interpreting that central guidance or getting some guidance that can be interpreted, or whether flexibility, you mentioned flexibility, I think that'd be really warmly welcomed, I guess, across the network. Sorry, Greta, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, can I come in there? Because I've run every HAF design sprint, so I'm kind of know what young people in Northumberland versus Birmingham versus Gateshead versus Brenton, London looking for. And whilst there are differences, you'd be surprised at the similarities. So maybe the trigger access mechanism is different. But let me give you one example. So transport is a key kind of like barrier, if you like, for young people engaging in HAF. So young people, and I'll talk over Andrew on this one because unfortunately Andrew hasn't managed to attend everyone. So the national sprint will be Andrew's first, but he understands exactly obviously what we're doing because he's been involved in it before. So young people in terms of transport, the problem of accessing free transport to get to locations is obviously different in London, where you have a very integrated transport system, to rural Northumberland. But the actual overarching theme of free transport is the same. If you look at something like work experience or job placement, it's different in terms of, in rural Northumberland, We have a lot more people that want to go into agriculture and kind of forestry and different skills than perhaps in inner city Birmingham or London. But the overarching theme of work placement is the same. There's young people are firmly in every location we're looking at saying they do not want to go to a community church hall or a community centre and just be part of something there. What they're really looking for is they're looking for investment in the youth sector, which has been decimated over the last few years. They want to have their building, their place to be, where they can drop in and out of, but actually have this type of digital hat where they can access different locations and different services in the community. So it's a very, very different concept to what we've currently got. And I actually think that's very positive because the community organisations that are doing such a sterling job delivering HAF for primary school would be overwhelmed if all of these young people suddenly turned up for a HAF. We all know how hard the community organisations work at delivering HAF, and they do an excellent job. So rather than looking at it in building just solely on that community support, what we're looking for local authorities to consider, and actually also, regenerating the high street. So here's another area we need to consider within each local authority. So let me give you an example on that. If you look at the high street is full up of closed down shops. So why can't we be looking, this is an idea from the young people, so I can't take any credit for it, they're saying that shop that closed down, why can't we work with the council and regenerating the high street to make that a youth centre where it's fully supported, not only to deliver HAF, but as soon as you start looking at investment like that, you're looking at investment across the year in young people. So after school, the weekends, and the school holidays where they'll have a fully functioning youth centre, which could be supported potentially with services such as mental health. We can have violence reduction units going in, all types of activities that would be driven by the young people themselves. So is that clear to everybody? So it's quite different to what we're currently looking at. That's not to say that, that's one of the ideals that we're looking at. And the young people that are doing all of this work for us are saying, well, we have different stages of what we would want with an ideal. But it's one suggestion, so that would definitely get around multiple problems, because when we're looking at regenerating the high street, one of the comments that always comes back at a local level is, well, we always have young people hanging around the high street up to mischief, so to speak. But when I ask any local authority about regenerating the high street and say, how have you considered the voice of the young person? So far, no one's turned to me and said they've considered it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess it sparks thought, doesn't it, when there's so much available space, and like, what can you do with it now? I guess another one for me is more around how people can get involved. I mean, you've got the pilots are going to be coming out of this program of sprints, etc. But if there's someone out there, I guess from a different point of view, so there's providers out there who listen to the show, there's local authorities, there's other organisations that are really heavily involved in HAF. What's the best place for them to go to if they're thinking, all right, we've got a great idea, or we just want to support the young people and facilitate some of these ideas? Where's the best place for them to go? Is it first point of call? Would it be, Andrew, would they be coming to you at the Alliance to kind of access those resources and put themselves forward? Or would it be, what's the best next step?
I would suggest two steps. First, as you've mentioned there, James, to get in touch with us at the HAF Alliance, because every new set of ideas and experiences that come our way can only strengthen our efforts to inform and shape and influence the programme for years to come. But secondly, I'd also encourage people to get in touch with their local authority, because the way the government have structured the programme is that the funding flows through local authorities to the grassroots delivery organisations each year. And so local authorities are on the lookout for ideas and experiences from their own patch to make sure the programme goes as smoothly and successfully in their area as possible. So please do get in touch with us and also your own local council.
Brilliant. And Greta, I guess I'll always leave the last word for you. If you've got anything else to add in terms of where we are along the road with HAF, and I guess bright future with the programme and the engagement we have so far, but what's your kind of, closing remarks?
I think the future is bright for HAF. I think if you look at the time that it's taken from inception and implementation to delivering these outcomes, it's already been a really successful program. So I'm always touched by all of the work that local authorities, and importantly, many community and voluntary organisations do at supporting HAF at the local level. What I would add to Andrew is that if we've got any national sponsors out there, so any national organisations that think, oh, this is really interesting in terms of HAF and what we could achieve, how we could really install hope in our society, but also, most importantly, our young people, is to actually get in contact with the Department for Education. They do have a HAF partnership group that work on partnerships around HAF, and I think that would be an important step forward. Failing that, really open to hearing ideas about the design of programs and what initiatives people wish to try. I think one of the important things that we maintain is that it is led by young people. It's a program for young people, by young people, designed with adults, but it's led by young people.
Fantastic. Greta, Andrew, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's show. You can subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can write to us at dryphase.podcast@coordinate.cloud, tweet us at coordinatesport, or follow us on Instagram at coordinate_sports, or on my account at James_Ventures. This episode was produced by Nancy Kwamboka, with support from Claire Goodchild and Lola Small, with special thanks to Rochelle. I'm James Moore, and you've been listening to The Drive Phase from Coordinate Sport.